Yes, baby. Thank you. And actually got it. Thank you. Thank you for being so sweet and responsible. Well, it'll be nice if you will be. There's no need to get irritated. अपना गंदगी सब आवाज कम कर लो.
मेरे इधर स्ट्रीम में पूरे बिग बॉस के डायलॉग बाजी जाएगी. बिग बॉस ऑन कर रही है. अब नहीं आ रही. इसमें अच्छा लग रहे हैं शूज. तेज कर लिया. यार तो पंखा कम कर लो ना. तुमको इतनी बार तो बोला है. लो मेरे को दे दो. डायपर में है ना. आओ भाई, आओ भाई, अपन गेम खेलेंगे. हाँ चढ़ा. हाँ वो तो रहा. ओ देख. ये अपन ने मार दिया, मुन्ना अपन ने मार दिया। तो मैं तो बहुत देर से देख रहा हूँ, तुम देख रहे हो। Clip that fuckers. Baby, oof. Snipes. We snipes. पट से हेडशॉट. इसको भी दिखाऊंगा पट से हेडशॉट. Oh! Yes. Ooh, yeah, shit. हार गए अपन.
ये प्रॉप्स है भाई, सीधे छोड़ दी गई है. बड़ी है किसकी, कौन है ये मान लो आप. ये सब के प्रॉप्स है भाई.
नहीं. कौन दी दिन मुझे फोन आई थी?
आपने बॉडी ऑब्जर्व है सिक्योरिटी इशू या ऐसी सिक्योरिटी इशू
और उनकी बॉडी को कौन गार्ड करता है? उनकी बॉडी को कौन गार्ड करता है?
उनकी बॉडी ठीक ठाक है.
फिर मैंने कहीं झूठ बोला. मेरे साथ में अपने बहुत बॉडी बनाई. लेकिन इंजन बन गया. बॉडी का पहले रखते हैं. बॉडी करने में.
मेरे बॉडीगार्ड्स ने तो फोन में 100 लोगों की जान बचाई.
Oh, let's go. रुक कहाँ से पड़ रही है भाई? ओ
मौका उनका आखिरी होगा क्या पता। अंतिम फैसला तो डेमोक्रेसी का ही होगा।
कल मैंने किसी अपनी एक वजह से अपना धर्म त्याग की भावना अगर लगी आप लोगों को तो वो मेरी एक की जरूरत भी थी। अब रही बात आगे की कि अभी मेरा गेम किसी ने देखा भी नहीं, हमने साथ में अभी बहुत ज्यादा समय भी नहीं बिताया, लेकिन इसके बावजूद भी अगर जिस टाइम में आपने अपना नाम लिया उस टाइम पे आपने मानते ही है कि ये बात नहीं है, तो शुरुआत में तुम्हें ये बहाने फुल वजह से दिया जाना है। शुरुआत में तुम्हें इनका नाम क्यों लिया? क्या है कि मैं तो थोड़ा स्मार्ट तरीके से तो यार रोज रोज तो खेल रहे हैं कि घर के सारे लोगों को हम सब जान ही चुके हैं, या फिर हम जैसा रोज बाहर ऐसे ही रिएक्ट करते होंगे। तुम्हें वोटिंग किसकी आ रही है? सारे लोग जो तुम्हें वोट कर रहे हैं और शहबाज जो है ऐसा नहीं उसने कब पे पूरी मेहनत की तो वो भी तो जस्टिफाइड है। अपने आप को वोट किया नहीं, मैं ओवरटॉक मत करो, तो मैं भी तो बोल रही हूँ।
क्या ट्राई कर रहा है?
इससे
टाइम पे किसी का जजमेंट दे नहीं सकते हो। आई लिटरली सेव यू।
और आपने क्या कर दिया?
अगर मुझे बेड नहीं मिलता तो मैं उसी रूम में मैं पार्क में क्यों लगाता, और पार्क में लगा के कमर की ओढ़ता इतनी लाइट के अब मैं चलेगा। ओके थैंक यू लवी। बाकी सारे जगह में वो पढ़ाना बोला
सब अपनी अपनी सेटिंग लगाने में लगे हैं।
समझे आप? मैं आपका दोस्त हूँ इसलिए मैंने बोला कि नीलम जी हमारी अक्षर में एक महीना तो लगे भाई आप बात करो तो अपने आपको अगर अगली बार वोट दे नोएडा आके मारेंगे। मुझे पता है ये कोई सामान क्यों नहीं
ये बात
मुझे खटेगा मतलब
आवाज तो कम कर लो यार, तुम बार बार तेज कर लेती हो। क्या बकवास। अरे भाई लोग लाइट चली गई। मतलब खिसका दूंगा उसको।
मुझे कुकिंग नहीं आती, तो आप मुझे देखिए 2 सेकंड का पॉडकास्ट एग्जैक्टली व्हाट हैपेंड। मुझे तो गवाह है मेरे पास यार, मैं झूठी बोल रहा हूँ। आई डोंट हैव अ रीजन। कैमरा चेक कर सकती हैं आप। मुझे कुकिंग नहीं आती, आपने ली कुकिंग ड्यूटी। मैंने आपको नहीं बोला चाहिए कुकिंग कीजिए, राइट? आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी थी, आप खड़ी थी, तब भी मैं आपके पास आके नहीं बोला मेरे को ऑमलेट बना के दो। आपने वो किया, आपने बीच में आके बोला somebody else said, सही है, किसने बोला है? Nobody asked you यार, nobody asked you कि बना के दो, because you are rude. No, I will not take anybody's shit here. Please,
ये भगवान।
मेरे साथ ठीक रहे। जब तक मैं आपसे बदतमीजी ना करूं, मुझसे ना करें। आप बदतमीजी करने की कोशिश में मत करना। आप करके तो देखिए फिर, अगली बार करके देखिए फिर। आप बदतमीजी नहीं कर, आपने की है, तो प्लीज फिक्स दैट। अभी आपने सॉरी बोला, क्यों बोला मैं सॉरी? अगर आपको लगा नहीं अगर आप गलत हो। ये नेहा ने मुझे बोला कि आपने रोड दी बात, इसकी बात मैं बोला, तो आप पहले आप मुझे क्यों सॉरी?
ये भगवान।
मिस, you know what? I want a screaming match. आपको बोलना जरूरी है। नाम है मेरा।
आवाज थोड़ी कम कर लो, वैसे ही वो इतना चिल्लाते रहते दिन भर उसमें। प्यार से ले। अबे यार क्या बकवास देख रहे हो यार। मतलब जीवन में एंटरटेनमेंट चाहिए तो कुछ भी देखोगे।
मतलब वो नहीं चाहते ना उनसे बेबी आप ये सब सोचिए तब पागल हो जाए
डबल बैरल शॉटगन
कोई दिक्कत नहीं मैंने कहा मेरे को ये कि कल रोज अगर या तो ड्यूटी स्वैप करोगे
बहुत जल्दी मिल
हाँ वो देखो जल्दी ही होता है रोज रोज अगर से इतना जल्दी उठना तो पॉसिबल नहीं बिकॉज दोपहर में
Back in 2018, I was in a difficult position. I had lost my job working security for a local firm and was looking for something on short notice. Add to that, I was in a difficult situation with my then girlfriend. We were on a sort of pause and it was a strange time. In short, I was looking for a job and I found one. There's this charity, which I won't name, that handles distribution of something called the Little Miracle Chest. These have been around since the 80s, but they're very limited in scope. It's these colorful toy boxes that are sent out to first-time parents, mostly in the southern East Coast states. They usually contain a couple of goodies, some parental advice books, a Bible, and a couple of things. It's been around for a while, but I don't think a lot of people talk about it. I read online that a local Jack had a miracle chest in a permanent warehouse so I had one of those chests as a kid, and honestly, I loved it. I thought it was a nice callback, especially at the time. For the sake of brevity, I'll just say this up front. I've changed a couple of names around, including my own, just to make sure my position and location stays on the list. I met with a guy, let's call him Jonah, friendliest guy that you'll ever meet. Early 50s, honest living kind of guy who would pass the treatment in last days. He looked like a cool dad and he said he was going to chat. For a handshake, call me please. I met him just outside the warehouse. He was starched white shirt that I'd ever seen. Jonah, he said, shaking my hand. And you must be Henry. You got that right. I'm glad to be here. It's like I know you already. You want the tour? Gotta admit, I said, I'm a bit nervous about the interview. Interview? Jonah laughed. My friend, as far as I'm concerned, the job is yours. We got your application is all. You fit the bill just fine. You sure? I asked. I figured you need some, I don't know, clarity. I got a good eye for people, smiled Jonah. But I suppose I have one question that needs answering if you're so inclined. Go right ahead. Jonah put a hand up to shield his eyes from the July sun. The guy was clearly an outdoorsy type, being tanned from head to toe. And do you consider yourself a nurturing man? He asked. It was a perfectly fair question, but it was difficult to answer. I had this girlfriend, Jill, I'd been seeing for about 8 months. We got along great and had been talking about it had been this thing she hadn't intended to hide. It just ended up that way. We got along so well that by the time she wanted to tell me, it had gotten strange to bring it up. I don't think it was nefarious, but it became this strange, sticking point in our story. 8 months into a very nice relationship. At that point, I didn't know if things were complicated because I didn't want to be a stepfather because she had lied to me. So when Jonah asked me if I was a nurturing man, that's when I found out. I zoned out a little and answered as well as I could. I would like to think that I am. I said, I don't know, it's hard to tell. All right, he's drunk. Small drunk. That makes up for a lot. With that, he gave me a tour of the warehouse. Row after row of little miracle chests, all wrapped in cellophane and frozen sugar. The little miracle chests are about 4 feet long and 3 feet wide, and has a rounded treasure chest kind of way. The thing is made of some solid kind of wood and has these metal handles built into the side. It's heavy with these thin lines. And on the side you have all kinds of classic American items. Boys and girls playing in the sun. A white church and green grass to the right. Happy couples hanging on one another. But also a fluid adventurous motifs. Like lions being ridden by unicorns. Our little girl is feeding unicorns with blue sunflower seeds. It's probably the most sugar-coated person thing that you'll ever see, if you haven't seen one already. Before we could enter, Jonah gave me a tap on the back. These things come straight from the printer, so we have these industrial fans going in there to keep the prints from peeling until they settle. So it's loud in there. So we got these headphones, noise canceling and all. Whenever you're in the main hall, you need these on at all times or it'll hurt your hearing. And you can't be held liable for that. We don't got that kind of law. Fair enough. He gave me the headphones and showed me about the warehouse. It was a decorated was a prickly smell like old lime and deep ammonia. It stuck with you immediately. Jonah showed me around the main hall, the loading dock, and the various entryways to keep an eye on. He pointed out a few cameras, all the light sources, and where all the emergency buttons were in case of a fire or a serious accident. Once we got out of the warehouse, we put away the headphones and put them in a locker. And there was this small adjoining office with 2 desks and an honest-to-God file specialty. And Jonah explained a couple of details that I needed to keep in mind. We got this place pretty cheap because the ground rests on an aquifer, he explained. That's been shifting slightly over the years, causing a sort of incline. We've looked into contractors to have this compensate. It's a secret. Long story short, homie, you make a check, you checks, and tumble on the You don't want them to break. Not one. Is that why you wrap them up? The traction and to keep the fumes in. You know, they're straight from the printer. We don't want you getting a wheezy lung. We want you around for a while. I appreciate that. Anything else I ought to know? Well, look at you. Smiled Jonah, giving me a firm pat on the shoulder. Being proactive. I knew I picked the right guy. Well, since you asked, there's one last thing. He sat down on one of the desks, trying to look like a cool substitute teacher. I bet that move worked better on the younger folks. Well, 2 things, he admitted. 1, don't use the freezer. We've had to throw out a bunch of stuff because of it. And 2, do you know our motto? Yeah, the little miracle motto. Do you know it? I used to have one as a kid, right? And of course I didn't. It was written on the inside of the letter, so you saw it every time you read it. God loves all his little miracles. So, that's the motto. God gave me dog heaven. I knew you would hurt me. He gave me another firm clap on the shoulder. A couple of signed papers later, I was officially hired. There were a couple more things we could track of, like this work teams, what to do at certain times, and how many hours of the day I was around. I had an alternating schedule with a 3-week rotation. The pay was decent, but I had to scale back on a couple of things, and I was only working 4 days out of the week. The extra pay for work and the occasional weekend night shift more than made up for it. All in all, I was only down about $100 or so from my last job. And yes, work is a much more stable and better hours. Jonah was always around, mostly in the office. I saw him try to get that stupid freezer to work 4 times, but gave up and started using it for storage. Mostly charity merch like hats and cheap jackets. The people who work there strip those houses with such a they would bring in the occasional plate of cookies and wish me a blessed afternoon. They would keep to themselves and give me a curious side-eye. Night shifts were a whole different thing. The little miracle chest looked strange in the dark. You have to consider the one I used to have was beat up and torn at the edges. These things were fresh from the printer. They looked nothing like my old thing. It had been thrown out somewhere around my later high school years. I grew up in a troubled home. I didn't know it was a troubled home back then, but it was. I was an only child, and my parents were constantly complaining about their financials. Whenever the 2 of them were in the same room for more than an hour, they would yell. There was always something. The broken lawnmower, the extra shit, the ruined our weekend plans, the cheap tumbler, that strange noise from the shower drain. There was always something, and someone had something to say about it, and they had to say it loud. I used to get so tired of it that I would lay into my bed with a pillow over my head, trying to drown the sound. That is until I realized that the living miracle just that was mostly silent. I would put blankets and pillows in there and make them my happy place. sounds sad, but I never knew it was. I love that darkness. It was my own and no one could tell. I would whisper my inner fears to the void, and it felt like it understood me, like it was a friend. I could imagine it saying, "You're our little miracle, Henry, and we'll always be here for you." And every time I looked up, there was that motto, "God loves all his little miracles." The job itself wasn't that demanding. I would help out with the occasional loading at the dock, and I would keep the place shut down and safe in the evenings. Most of the time I was walking around the warehouse, listening to a podcast or an audiobook. And the headphones that Jonah gave me were these amazing $400 industrial things that worked as radio, communication, and media player. And he was perfectly fine with me listening to something while on my own. For all his quirks, Jonah was probably the most chill boss that I'd ever had. There were a couple of times that I had to step in. A couple of chests had slid a bit too far, and I'd have to wrap them up in more cellophane and put them back. Other times, the smell would get so strong that I had to step out for a while. I would get chills from the overhead fans, and there was always something sticky to get your shoe stuck in. So it wasn't perfect, but what job is? But my troubles started for real when I started using glasses. I had been riddled with headaches for a while, and Jonah gave me a day off to check with an optician. Turns out I needed glasses. It was a pain to get used to, but even more of a pain to wear them underneath the headphones. I would get this chafing around the edges of my ears from the constant pressure. After a while, I decided to take a break from the headphones, if only for a while, just to give my ears some time to rest. And that's when I noticed something peculiar. The industrial fans weren't really that loud, and barely even a hum. I asked Jonah about it, but he insisted that I wear the headphones or at least earplugs. "It's an insurance thing," he argued. "It's really important. Please take this seriously, Henry." I didn't want to lie to him, but I did. Whenever no one was around, I would put away the headphones. I would still keep them around my neck if I needed to put them back on, but I would keep them off most of the time. But that put another thought into my head. What about the floor tilt? Was that really a thing? The fans weren't so bad, so maybe this wasn't either. There was this water level tool in the office. I borrowed it from Jonah's desk and I went into the warehouse. I checked the warehouse shelves one by one. None of them were tilted or at an angle. They were all perfectly straight. I had the day shift the following afternoon, and there was a short moment before my lunch break where there was just me and Jonah in the office. He had kicked his feet up on a chair and basked in the heat like a lizard. I had only been with Little Miracles for a few weeks, but I had already grown to enjoy the job. Asking questions about it felt shaky. Jonah looked up at me with a curious expression. "I got a couple of questions about the warehouse," I said. "A couple of things ain't adding up and I need some clarity." "Well, Henry, that's what the good book is for. But I guess I could clear up some of the smaller stuff. Let's start with the headphones. The fans are barely audible. There's no way they could cause any kind of hearing damage." Jonah nodded with a slightly furrowed brow. "All right," he said, "go on. And the shelves, you said the floor was crooked and that the chest keeps sliding. I checked the floor and it ain't crooked and the shelves ain't either. So what are you asking me, Henry? What's this adding up to? There's something you're not telling me. If we're gonna be a team, I need to know what's going on." Jonah got up from his chair and patted me on the shoulder. His frown softened into a trained, quiet smile. He held his hand out, urging me to follow him into the warehouse. We wandered over to the closest chest, and Jonah gently placed it on the floor. He unwrapped the cellophane, talking to me as it came undone. The smell of the print unfurled like a carpet, spilling over my senses. The ammonia could have choked me out, but it was the old lime smell that stuck around the longest. "I can't tell you why they slide off the shelves," Jonah said. It's just something that we have to compensate for. He tapped the chest and opened it, showing me the simple wooden interior. It was empty with the motto printed on the inside of the lid. The headphones are a courtesy, Jonah sighed. A couple of folks feel bad about asking if they can play music or listen to something while they're out here by their lonesome. We figure giving a free pass makes the time go a little bit faster. And while we already bought the things. Jonah, that can't be it. That can't be all there is. He closed the lid and wrapped the chest back up. Here's God's honest truth, he said. This entire organization is here to care for the good Lord's little miracles. And if we do what's expected of us, that's what we'll do. And there wasn't a hint of a lie. I don't know what I expected. The chests were empty, and while the explanations were weak, they were at least plausible. It was enough to keep my mouth shut for a little while longer. If there's anything else, you know where to find me, he said. Stick to the script and you'll be fine. And for some time I did just that. I patrolled those halls day and night, making sure the chest didn't slide off the shelves. I listened to my audiobooks, helped load the trucks, and wrapped the chests in cellophane. And that was all there was to it. I had the thought that maybe Jonah had picked a specific chest to open, so at times I would open others just to check, but they were always empty. For a full month, I didn't think much of it, and that is until one particular night. I didn't use my headphones that evening. My glasses were chafing again. I had gotten a text from Jill earlier that night, and I kept pacing back and forth, trying to figure out what to respond. Maybe I shouldn't respond at all. The message was part apology, part explanation, and a reminder that despite it all, she missed me. Part of me wanted to say that I missed her back. Another part wanted to walk away. Jonah's question still stuck with me. Am I a nurturing man? As I paced, I noticed one of the chests having slid a little further than usual. A full corner of the chest was hanging off the edge of the shelf. I put my phone away, slid the chest back in place, and stepped back. As I did, I heard something. It was low, like a mumble from behind a pane of glass. Thank you. I looked back at the chest. I stared at it, dumbfounded. You're welcome? There was no response. And of course there wasn't. I mean, how could there be? It might have been the wind, but a part of me knew that it wasn't. That noise brought me back to those childhood summers, hidden away in the safety of my little miracle chest while my parents threw dinner plates and novelty mugs. In the safety of that chest, when I whispered something, I would imagine someone listening, and that someone would sometimes whisper back. And what I heard in that warehouse was exactly what I had imagined that voice to sound like. From that point on, I started looking at the little miracle chests a bit different. I began questioning whether they were affecting me or how I was affecting myself. It had been such a small sound, barely audible. A whisper of a thank you. I mean, I could have misheard it. I must have. The only other option was nonsensical. Chests can't talk, and I knew for a fact that these were empty. But I couldn't help it. During those long hours of the night, I had to look a little bit closer, listen a little longer. And when I couldn't convince myself to stop, I tried to test them, challenge them even. I would whisper at them, knock on the lid, or pick up and shake them a bit. Of course, nothing happened, but every now and then I would see one of them twitch or rattle. Was it one particular chest that moved, or was it all of them? One night I didn't even bother to try. I just picked up a chest and stared at it, waiting for it to move. I had looked at it for so long that the image sort of blurred, like when you hear a word too many times and it starts to sound like a noise. And then there it was. A nudge, just a little but clear as day. I rushed it, tore away the cellophane and opened it. And of course, it was empty. and I'd accidentally ripped off part of the print, just a corner where the lion was at. I thought about lying to Jonah, but I knew better. Not only did he deserve the truth, but there were cameras to tell the full story. Not that I didn't think he would believe me, but because it didn't matter. No matter if the chest moved or not, I had messed up. I met Jonah in the parking lot on the way to the office. He carried a much too formal suitcase and a copy of today's paper. I caught up and told him flat out what I had seen. The moving chest and the subsequent unwrapping. Jonah nodded and then wielded his newspaper like a judge's gavel. "Henry," he said, "you're still the perfect man for the job, I know you are, and I want to help you. Well then tell me what's going on, and tell me that I'm not crazy. How about this? You heard about the storm?" It had been the talk of the week. A storm brewing over the weekend with the brunt of it hitting later that evening. The sky had already darkened. We had a last-minute cancellation and I got no one to help. If you can keep things in check this one night, I'll see what I can do. Can do about what? I asked. What can you do? Henry, please, he said, putting his hand on my shoulder. I'll see what I can do. I agreed. Things were gonna be a bit different that evening. I was the only one on site and there would be no one to call for backup. That and the storm was guaranteed trouble. We had to close the fans and lock down the shelves with plastic straps. And because the fans weren't running, I would have to wear a mask with a gas filter, just in case the fumes got too intense. I was gonna have to make sure that everything was secure, which would be an effort and a half. Not even an hour into my shift, I started getting warnings about rolling blackouts in the area due to fallen trees cutting out the power lines. 30 more minutes and it reached me. The entire warehouse turned dark with a sudden click. The silence was so palpable that I could hear my heartbeat. It's surprising just how many noises are around you even when it's quiet. You kinda don't notice it unless the power's gone. As the power went out, I could hear the wind picking up. It was pushing into our ventilation, making the warehouse fans squeak in protest. And with a first lightning strike, I heard the shelves rattle. Not because the ground shook, but because they suddenly moved. And I checked out the straps on the shelves with a flashlight, trying to figure out what had made them move. I noticed a particular chest on the mid-level that had slipped a bit, and I pushed it back in line. That was the one to keep an eye on. But as the second lightning strike collapsed into the woods outside, the shelves rattled again. And when thunder started to roll, I looked up. It wasn't just one peculiar chest. They were all moving. Some of them were actively fighting against the protective straps. Others seemed to shake like a leaf in the wind. It's like something had kicked them and forced them into action. A couple of the lids flipped up, revealing the empty insides. I could hear the cellophane stretch and strain against some unseen force, pushing the chest every which way. And then the voices. What's happening? Who's there? Is it danger? I tried my best, I really did. I tried to ignore the movement and the whispers. I tried keeping them all still and secure. But one strap on the far end of the warehouse came undone and one persistent gust of wind made the entire thing lean. I could see that it was about to fall long before I got there. It crashed into another shelf to avoid the brunt of the weight and luckily it held. But one chest on the far end got loose. It collapsed to the floor and splintered on the concrete. Something leaked out of it. It looked like a water and oil mixture and it had this intense smell of old fruit. I grabbed what remained of the lid and moved it, only to see a small, translucent hand sticking out, no bigger than my thumb. Little claws curled around the fingertips. It was so white that I could see its veins, where a pulse ought to twitch, but it didn't. It lay still. I left the lid go and I backed away. Die, a chest whispered. Die, said another. Mother, for mother. They hissed and rattled, every chest under the shelf. And as the hissing got louder, it turned into a wail, a cry for help, drowning into the raging storm. I backed away, not knowing what to do. A couple of straps were coming undone. Some shelves were swaying in the wind. And right there on the floor lay that splintered chest, like a broken egg. I'm trying to help, I called out. I can help, just please stop and I'll help. The Death Man, a chest hissed. Fear the Death Man. Mother, mother. The calls got louder, a chant for mother, for something to come help them to deal with the Death Man. I couldn't stay. Defying the storm, I rushed out of the warehouse and into the parking lot. I was drenched in seconds as the rain fell sideways, but I much preferred the howling storm to whatever was happening on those shelves. I couldn't believe it. I ran for my car. I had to call Jonah. I had gotten about 30 feet when I noticed something on the road ahead. It looked like an oncoming flash flood. Mud and trees and bushes being swept up into a big pile, rolling its way across the road. It was far off, but there was something about it. It looked out of place. I stopped for a second to look a little bit closer. It had eyes. It wasn't oozing across the road, it was crawling like a massive reptile. I had mistaken its scales for tree bark. It was a creature, an unreal reptilian thing, and it was coming straight at me. And now that I looked at it was fast. I never made it to my car. I turned back to the warehouse and I sprinted as fast as my legs would allow and slammed the door shut behind me. 2 seconds later, the door imploded with a metallic twang, hitting me in the shin bone and sending me sprawling to the floor. Mother, the chest cried. Mother comes. Mother saves. Mother eats the Death Man. Eat the Death Man. Something groaned. It sounded like a tree bending in the wind, but there was a tune to it, and it repeated like the croak of an angry frog. The living mudslide reached into the warehouse, only to reveal a 5-clawed forelimb, each claw the size of my leg. It cracked the floor like wet sand. And then a roar. The air rippled and the pressure made my ears pop long before I even heard its sound. It was part hiss, part croak, and part shriek, all wrapped into one furious bellow that rattled the windows. I got up on my feet, wobbling from the gash in my leg, just as the thing reached the loading bay doors. Those are solid metal. I thought that they would hold for a while, but they bent wide open with little effort. It was like watching a rabid dog tear into a pillow fort. The storm spilled onto the warehouse floor. The winds shook the shelves as the creature stopped in front of the broken chest. A split white tongue tasted the air, each segment the size of a grown man's thigh. It poked around the splinters and looked up with a pupil the size of a bowling ball. Kill the Death Man, one demanded. Kill him now. Mother, mother. A bellow rolled out of that thing like a revving engine. I saw claws sink into the concrete as it dragged itself forward, heading my way. I hobbled into the main office. I could hear that thing thrashing around trying to follow me. For a second, it stopped. I thought that maybe the door was too small for it. And then I heard a scratching noise like construction tools being dragged across the wall. It was gonna break the entire room. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I couldn't make a run for it, but that thing would be on me in seconds out in the open. I had to keep stalling it, but I didn't know how. It was protecting something young and small hidden within the chest. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I thought about Jill and not seeing her again, about never answering her last text, only for her to see my name in the obituaries. And then a chime, a ringtone. And Jonah had an extra phone in his top desk drawer, a cheap disposable flip phone, and it was ringing. I pulled it out and answered, gasping for air as my eyes flicked back and forth. Jonah's voice came through the other end.
Henry, I'm sorry it came to this.
What is this? What do I do?
Where do we go when we're scared, Henry? Where are we safe?
That's what I'm asking. What do I do?
Think, Henry. Where are you safe?
I blinked. My mind snapped to attention and I looked around the room. And there by the window was the broken freezer. I climbed into it, hiding beneath a pile of merchandise while the storm raged outside. I could hear the wall give way to tooth and claw as a primal bellow rattled the confines of the freezer. I just lay there in the dark, clutching the phone like my childhood flashlight. I calmed my breathing, listening to Jonah's voice.
Just like back in the day.
What are you talking about? Another bellow. Something bumped the freezer, making it wobble, but it didn't tip over.
She's upset with you. She hasn't been socialized like the others.
I didn't say anything. I just held the phone tight, closed my eyes, and tried to breathe.
Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't think it would be this bad. I just thought they'd get a little scared from the thunder and maybe show you something, but...
Another lightning strike in the distance. Thunder roared across the sky and the creature outside crashed across the room, trampling the desks and breaking the cheap metal chairs. I could hear a bookshelf crash, and seconds later, something smacked into the freezer. It fell over. The freezer collapsed to the side, but the lid stayed on. I had my breath knocked out of me with a violent thud, but I stifled my wheezing behind a handful of shirts.
Stay still. Do nothing.
I heard massive lips smacking as soaking wet dragged across the freezer like sandpaper.
She doesn't know that you're a nurturing man. She's mourning.
I thought about Jill, and with death staring me in the face, I knew the answer to the question Jonah had asked me on that first day. I was a nurturing man. I had been all along. And if I could get out of there in one piece, I would show them. I kept my eyes closed, just like I had done as a child. I'd pretend the world was different as chaos reigned outside, that they were play fighting or throwing pies like circus clowns. I thought back on those moments in the dark where I'd been an astronaut, ready to set off to distant planets, to make friends with alien life. Or the moments when I had read aloud from some comic book that I had bought with my monthly allowance. A white tongue slipped through the lid of the freezer, tasting the air. A waft of warm swamp breath swept over me as the creature snorted, looking for my scent. But that freezer smelled more like Jonah than me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll do better. I'm sorry.
I know. You're still God's little miracle, Henry. We both are.
Another low, rumbling, bellowing. This one rippled through my body as if softening me up for a bite. The tongue protruded again, missing the sweet top of my head by mere inches. And then it stepped back. It dragged itself across the floor, pulling half of the office along in a sudden U-turn. Order slips and receipts stuck to its scales, whipping around in the wind. Debris from broken desks and flattened chairs clung to it, floating along like a natural disaster. I lay there, tucked among the battered merchandise, listening to the howling storm. The worst had passed and the warehouse chests were quiet.
I'm so proud of you. So proud of what you've become.
And I would stay there until dawn with Jonah, waiting for the wind to stop yelling. Most of the damage was covered by insurance. This part of the county was apparently prone to floods, it seemed, which was one of the reasons it was so cheap. Of course, there was no flood, but I get the sense that they knew that. I met Jonah a couple of days later on a park bench not too far from the warehouse. He was having yogurt and brought a thermos of piping hot coffee. We hadn't spoken since that night, but he seemed just as cheery as always. I wasn't. I need to know what this is. All of this. He looked up at me and then back down at his yogurt. Mango flavor. Hey, I never lied to you. The Tapex is God's little miracle. We just make sure they grow up to be good. They need to socialize and to listen. So you send them out to children, you hide them in chests and just let them go? It works. We rarely have a problem. And what are they? Well, in the wild, they're terrifying. But it's like with dogs, and they can be your best friend or roam in packs looking for prey. So that big thing was a wild one. Not a wild one. A poorly socialized one. Then what do the good ones look like? Jonah finished his yogurt, putting the little plastic spoon down. He wiped his lips and rubbed the tips of his fingers together, making a strange sound. His fingertips were solid, like sanded down bone. They can look like a good friend, a kind uncle, a goofy aunt, or a friendly boss who doesn't ask too many questions. Someone who knows you very well. I looked at him, past the horn-rimmed glasses and the calming smile. There was a tint to his eyes that I hadn't seen before, and a slight protrusion along his spine. It's not without purpose, Henry, he said. We're all just trying to be better people. He got up and stretched a little and then let his demeanor sink back into a familiar expression. See you Monday, for the cleanup. I got up, looked him over and shook his hand. See you Monday. It's been a few years since. The first thing that I did after that meeting was call Jill. It didn't take long for us to reconnect. She gave me every opportunity to back out, but I kept at it. And beyond all my insecurities and questions and worries was a life of calm and warmth, one that I could nurture into something beautiful. A place with bedtime reading and early morning car karaoke. You might be surprised to know that I still work with Little Miracles. We have one of the chests at home. The creature that lived in it slipped out last summer, having grown too large to stay in the double-bottom floor. I don't consider these things a threat any more than I do a stray dog or an outdoors cat. I get it now. I get how they work, and I don't have to wear any headphones at work. They don't mind me hearing the voices. Jonah has never said it out loud, but I think he and I both know where we first met. He's been with me for a long time, all the way back to when I read books by flashlight. Thanks to him, I guess someone listened to all those times when I whispered into the dark. It's a good reminder that God loves all his little miracles, and maybe we should too.
People think Rome is always warm, But September crept in cold. Chill soaking the cobbles before dawn. I clung to my jacket.
Hello. Oh yes.
बात